goes into making this decision. But we're also told that the vice president really liked the governor's background, what he has been able to do in terms of public service as a veteran, as a former teacher, and as someone who was a lawmaker for years as well. So all of that combined seemed to contribute to this. And then when you stack that up against the other top contenders, we're told that simply the vice president didn't have as strong as of a connection with Governor Josh Shapiro, with Senator Mark Kelly, and that's what she really came away with, that there was this sense that her conversation, the Harris vetting team's conversation with Governor Walz, was something that surprised some of them, because he certainly was the dark horse heading into this. But when you look at his longer record and what he brings to the table as a Midwestern governor who represents both rural voters but has a progressive record, they felt that that was a really important complement to what Vice President Harris has done and her own background. So last night, I think you saw a little bit of that energy and enthusiasm for the ticket on display, and now their challenge will be trying to carry that momentum forward. But they're able to do that, Jose, with the help of $20 million, which the Harris-Walz team raised yesterday just since announcing him as the running mate.
Those are incredible numbers. And, Peter, by choosing Walz over, for example, and Monica was just mentioning, Shapiro in Pennsylvania, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, what are we learning more about what those potential candidates brought to the table or didn't bring to the table, according to the vice president?
Well, I think as we look at this right now, there's been some conversation about why she may have passed over these others, and it's less the question is I've heard from my reporting about passing them over as it is the affirmative choice for Tim Walz in this selection. Monica laid out the bio, him being an effective messenger. I think also worth noting that these two are generational peers. He is 6 months older than her. He's 60. She will turn 60 next April right now. So obviously she believes that he's someone who will not overshadow her, but also someone who can deliver home that key message, the idea of this sort of weird or weirdo label that he has used to brand not Republicans, but Trump and Vance, is something that stuck, something that resonated with Harris and her allies. Certainly those people during the vetting process, that was something that struck them. It was language that went viral right now, and it's really his ability to sort of deliver that plain-spoken punchline that they also believe will help them a lot, particularly not to win back necessarily a majority of those non-college educated white voters, but certainly to try to limit the deficit that the Democrats have had among that community. He is someone they believe can go into rural communities with his small town Midwestern roots and really deliver a message in the language that those Americans are familiar with and who really understands their experience. Jose.
Yeah, Zerlina, what do you think it is about the governor's record that you think stood out to the Harris campaign?
I think his record of public service, and you really have a contrast set up where you have two public servants, two people who have dedicated decades of their lives to serving the public, and the contrast on the other side could not be more clear. I also think that his record as a veteran, as a teacher, as a coach, I mean, a coach is a natural leader, somebody who can inspire people. And I think that the energy and excitement that you saw on display at the rally in Philadelphia is something that Democrats are fired up about right now, right? Just 3 weeks ago, we were in disarray and we were feeling very dejected and uninspired. And yesterday, what you saw is joy, and joy translates into the momentum and the mobilization that you need the base of the Democratic Party to have in order to turn out a multiracial, multi-generational coalition. And so I see this pick as a base-first strategy that the Harris-Walz campaign is utilizing, and then you build out from there. Instead of only focusing on those more moderate swing voters, you want your base of support to be fired up. And I can tell you, Jose, the kids are fired up, and there are 41 million Gen Z eligible voters, plus 72 million millennials. That's a big proportion of the American electorate in 2024.
And so when you say that the kids are fired up, what are you basing it on? And what do you think that the kids are seeing in Walz that maybe others haven't seen?
Well, I don't know if you spend a lot of time on TikTok. I try not to spend too much time on there because it is quite an addicting platform. But the organic nature of the kids making memes, first the coconut tree memes, but also Tim Walz's weird comment and also the cat lady comment, his pushback to the J.D. Vance comment that upset so many people. That is now a trending audio on TikTok. I don't know if you're familiar with how it works, but I think that when you see folks like David Hogg and March for Our Lives talk about how excited they are about this choice, you can see the kids, as I call them, really adults who are old enough to vote in this election cycle. Those folks are fired up not just about this choice and this ticket, but also the issues that Vice President Harris and Governor Walz support, right? We're talking about abortion rights under that freedom umbrella. We're talking about gun safety, and we're talking about climate change, all issues that resonate with these young people. And they're not necessarily affiliated with a particular political party, but they're issue-based first. And so when you're talking about the issues, they agree with what the vice president is saying, and they like what Governor Walz has done in Minnesota, as you see on the screen here, doing many progressive things in a state that has folks from all different walks of life.
Yeah, and Zerlina, all this is Donald Trump is now hinting at a potential debate with Vice President Harris. Here's what he had to say this morning on Fox News about that.
We'll see, because we'll be debating her, I guess, in the pretty near future. It's going to be announced fairly soon, but we'll be debating her. I'd like to see it on Fox, by the way. I would like to see it. My preference would be Fox, but we have to debate.
So it looks like he's going to debate. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's particularly interesting that he is preferring Fox News, his quote-unquote safe space with a large crowd and his hand-picked moderators to have this debate instead of the agreed to debate that they agreed to prior on ABC News. And I think that he is a little bit scared. Otherwise, he wouldn't be throwing out an alternative option in a space where he has hand-picked friendly moderators and a crowd to cheer him on.
Monica, what's the likelihood the Harris campaign would agree to a debate with Trump, but on different terms than what was originally agreed to?
Well, you really saw Vice President Harris lean into this in the last couple of days, saying, remember that it was Donald Trump who had stipulated any time, anywhere, any place when he was talking about debating Joe Biden at that point. So the Harris campaign has really been saying, we agreed to that. Now, it was under the different terms of facing Joe Biden at the top of the ticket, but they have effectively said they plan to be there for that ABC debate on September 10th, and that they will take the airtime. That's their understanding, whether the GOP nominee shows up or not. So I think this discussion will continue, and this is really something that's going to play out before we know for sure where it's going to land. But the other big question here, Jose, is when we're going to see now the debate between the vice presidential nominees, because that's something that had been up in the air as well. And we know J.D. Vance has said that he would debate Tim Walz once that is more formalized. So that's another date they have to add to this. But certainly from the Harris-Walz campaign perspective, they want to be participating in these showdowns, and they are essentially daring the Trump-Vance team to not show up because they say they're happy to have them. Jose?
And Peter, some of the Harris campaign events have been postponed due to Tropical Storm Debbie. What does the next couple of days look like for the Harris-Walz team?
Well, Jose, there's your map right there. 5 states in 5 days. It was supposed to be 7 states in the course of those 5 days, but they had to postpone, as you noted, the stops that were scheduled to take place in Georgia and North Carolina. Instead, importantly, today they are in the neighboring states for Tim Walz, Wisconsin in the earlier part of the day, Michigan a little bit later. These are key Rust Belt states, part of that blue wall that the Democrats know they need to be successful in for Kamala Harris to be America's next president. Here we have some new reporting this morning that that Vice President Harris and Walz are expected to participate in some engagement tomorrow with union workers there. Remember, the UAW has come out in support of Kamala Harris as well after previously supporting Joe Biden in the past. And they head out west to Nevada and Arizona, 2 key battlegrounds there. It'll be interesting to see whether Arizona Senator Mark Kelly participates in that event. Obviously, he was not selected as the VP, but much the same way that Josh Shapiro wasn't selected in Pennsylvania. Harris aides and allies are hopeful that he will do a lot to help support her and Walz on the ticket there to drive up the Democratic turnout coming up this fall.
And Peter, I know the president's been very involved in the situation in the Middle East, what may or may not be happening soon with Iran and Israel. What's on the president's schedule, and what's he been up to? And really, this whole issue of what could be happening in the Middle East is of such concern.
Well, we know the president has been regularly briefed by his national security team about the situation there. In fact, during Kamala Harris's private visits with her team and with some of those VP contenders earlier this week, our first sighting of her when she was sort of invisible, wasn't doing any public events, was that she was in the Situation Room, in fact, with President Biden and their national security team preparing for any possible scenario there right now. He has no public events scheduled today. There will be another briefing by Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, today on that. I think, politically speaking, he doesn't want to overshadow any events as they relate to Kamala Harris and this big rollout to try to carry forward his political agenda going forward. But specifically on this event, based on my conversation with those in the National Security Office here at the White House, the president has been deeply involved in the conversations they are having behind the scenes, preparing for any possible scenario.
Monica Alba, Peter Alexander, and Zerlina Maxwell, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Up next, Republican Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance on the attack. We'll play for you what he just said about his new rival, plus why Beto O'Rourke says Governor Walz is born to run. We'll talk to him about their longtime friendship and shared love of Bruce Springsteen. And later, in a major upset overnight, yet another member of the squad loses their primary. Take a look at the reasons behind the results next. You're watching Jose Díaz-Balart Reports on MSNBC, and we'll be back in 90 seconds.
El carro. Los pasajeros. El destino. El cinturón de seguridad.
¡Lotería!
¡Vámonos! ¡Lotería!
Juntos por un camino más seguro.
No tracking needed for 200+ certifiably nutritious 0-point foods. Join Weight Watchers today.
Dad, with this Fox tea, I could be class president. And with Target Circle, we save automatically. I'll run on a platform for longer recess and having the cool Fox tea. Vote Claire.
When I was working in the Senate, I didn't realize that it's the perfect training for the job that I have now. Covering government, covering politics, the complexity of it all. You learn how to explain that and how to live through that when you work in this building. Mastering the detail is crucial to being able to present anything that happens in Senate buildings like this or any of the other news centers that we have to focus on every day.
Fifteen past the hour, Republicans are ramping up their attacks on Vice President Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Walz. Here's what former President Donald Trump said about Harris's V-pick just this morning.
I can't believe it. I never thought this was going to be the one that was picked. I know him a little bit. I helped him very much during the riots. He's a very liberal man, and he's a shocking pick, and I'm thrilled. I could not be more thrilled.
With us now, NBC News correspondent Garrett Hake with Senator Vance in Shelby Township, Michigan, and Mark Short, former Chief of Staff to Vice President Mike Pence. So, Garrett, what did we hear from Vance this morning?